Hello everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Mega Man X. If you're just joining us for the first time and you just watched part 1, you may consider giving this part a watch first if you're not so confident in your abilities, because this is going to be dedicated to showing you the easiest way of getting through the game. It's specifically for a guy called Ness Eggman who... he thought if I showed the walkthrough as is to a friend, they might get intimidated, so first of all, let's just spam a bunch of 2s all over the place. Except for the upper right corner, that's going to be a 1. And... there you go. Half the Mavericks beaten, 5 hearts collected, 2 sub-tanks, and the Armbuster upgrade, so... already, we're off to a pretty good start. Hard to get much easier than that, right, Skyzo?
Yeah, this is about as easy as it gets, really.
Actually, let's talk about stage effects, too. I'd been meaning to talk about them, but never got a chance to. So, if you visit certain stages before beating others, they're going to be different, with Flame Mammoth being the most extreme example. It's going to have lava everywhere instead of ice, like it did in the main playthrough. And that lava does a lot of damage. There are fireballs popping out of the ground sometimes. Totally changes the way you play, which is yet another reason why to do Chill Penguin first. And speaking of Chill Penguin... bust out that rolling shield and watch as it demolishes everything. The rolling shield is the strongest special weapon in the game, just in terms of burst damage. I mean, Storm Tornado and Flame Wave do more. They do a lot of small damage over time, but for just a burst, it's the strongest. But what's really good about it is that if you have the arm upgrade, you can charge all of your special weapons. And for the rolling shield, it creates a barrier that will basically obviate entire sections of the game if the enemies are weak enough, as you can see.
Well, this seems very strong, although I can imagine this will work on bosses.
Oh, of course. Actually, it works on Sting Chameleon. All of his attacks.
Oh, and he was already easy, so...
well, the downside... well, first of all, if it's active before you get to the capsule, you can't get into it, so cancel that out in the start menu. But yeah, the other downside is that usually bulkier enemies will dispel it upon contact. They won't just break themselves against it like flies on a windshield, so this only works for certain chunks of each level. But where it does work, it negates the difficulty entirely.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I would imagine that it will be the most useful on the sections where you have a bunch of enemies that try to knock you into cliffs.
Oh, definitely. Now, let's talk about Chill Penguin. Now, as you can see, you can basically stun lock him with the Fire Wave, except for the times where he decides to slide. Then he'll get invincible for a brief little bit, and then that's your cue to jump. And then afterward, you can get back to pounding him to dust. And as for this climb, what you want to do with those annoying shield guys is you want to bait them out with a Storm Tornado, since it's delayed. Just make them attack, and... that'll open them up to the touch of death. Actually, I think it even works when their shield is up. As you can see, it's just only the tail of it actually gets them. Homing Missile would even work too, if you stand in the right spot, but this is easier. As is yet another burst of Rolling Shield.
Oh, so not even the lasers damage you.
Indeed. Of course, those guys will dispel your shield, so just Storm Tornado those guys, obviously. You'll go through about 4 of them, and then, after you get to the top, you can do yet another burst of Rolling Shield.
You know, I'm reminded of the invincibility leaf from one of the Mario games. I forget which one, but yeah, it basically negates all damage like this.
think that's called the Superstar.
No, it's actually not. So the way it works is that once you die a lot in one of the games, it like gives you a leaf, like a golden leaf, that is basically a superstar, but it never runs out. It's very overpowered.
Huh. Well, I'm gonna have to check that out. Also, the Arm Buster will lock you out of achievements, which is why I have that heading in the upper right. I will have another password for if you are going for achievements. But for now, let's talk about this heart. Now, in the main series, I showed the iceless way of getting it, since otherwise you would have had to revisit the stage, since one of the achievements is getting the Arm Buster from 0. But that right there, that is the intended way of getting it. Or you could come back with a boomerang cutter, but that's Kuwanger's weapon, so that's a revisit. Most people use the Icefall trick.
I see. Yeah, I don't think you showed too many of these sections where you do the speedrun, but then you do the vanilla version.
Exactly, which is part of the reason why I thought this episode was necessary, just to cover my bases, because this is supposed to be a walkthrough first and foremost.
Yeah, can't lose sight of that.
Yeah. And speaking of walkthroughs, if you're walking into Kuwanger with all of this stuff, you can basically just stand there and take all his shots to the face, if he can even hit me, which looks like the RNG was not in his favor that fight.
Oh, that was pathetically easy.
Oh, it's gonna get even better soon. Believe it or not, the Rolling Shield is not the most overpowered special weapon. We are gonna get what is the most overpowered one from Sting Chameleon. But for now, there's gonna be a lot of shield dispelling guys, so run through this section with the Storm Tornado. And once you get to a split where you can go either up or down, you want to go up, and that's where the body armor is, which cuts all damage in half. And as you can see, we're already not taking a lot of damage, so you can imagine just how much easier things get.
Absolutely. I mean, half damage is just something that this game doesn't really need.
Yeah, they introduced it in the Mega Man X series, and I don't think it was a thing in the regular Mega Man games. Like, maybe Mega Man 7 did something with that, but that was already on the Super Nintendo, so that's already in the Mega Man X era.
Yeah, it's certainly strange.
In fact, the series kinda... It's like the game designers realized they went too far in making this noob-friendly. And by the way, once you get to about this section, you'll want to refill your boomerang cutter, or else you won't have enough for Chameleon. But yeah, like, they give you 4 sub-tanks that will recharge all your health if they're filled up all the way. You have the body armor. And I think the game designers kind of realized, like, it was way too hard trying to balance the game around these things, so for X4, they reduced you to 2 sub-tanks while trying and not really succeeding to replace the missing 2 with other kinds of tanks, the weapon tank and the EX tank. We'll cover those in X4, and then the Mega Man Zero series, I think, just moved away from the body armor entirely. So you can see them trying to get themselves out of that rut as the series goes on more and more.
I can see that. And that was a very cool stunlock.
Indeed. Alright, Skyzo. Now for the big boy, and the reason the Rolling Shield isn't used more often. Charged up Chameleon Sting. Yeah. They can't hit you. At all.
Oh, so you just become invincible?
Yep. So, you know that iron leaf you were talking about?
Yeah, that was a golden leaf from one of the Mario games.
Yeah, imagine having 14 shots of them available to use whenever you want.
Oh, I can definitely see that. And I'd imagine that they work with bosses as well.
They do, but then you use the Chameleon Sting as a weapon, which only does 1 tick of damage, so it's very slow.
Yeah, but although I suppose if you really wanted to, you could.
By the way, that escape unit I'm using, that only works for stages you've already beaten the boss in. For Mavericks that aren't beaten, it won't work.
Right.
Alright, let's see. Notes. Right. Well, as you can see, there was ice in that stage now that we beat Penguin. Remember I was talking about that, right?
Oh, yes, I do.
And speaking of effects, this one also has a stage effect. If you haven't beaten Eagle yet, that big death ship won't crash into the factory, and it won't go completely dark. Like, it'll go a little dark, but not completely. And this guy will actually have a thunder attack instead of just basically farting like he is there.
Huh, that's interesting attention to detail.
Indeed. And I'm gonna skip large portions of the level since I don't think there's much more I can give you than literal invincibility. I will still show the bosses though.
I can see that.
So remember when I called this guy hard in part 4, Skyzo?
Yeah, not so hard now.
See, whenever I say that, I'm kind of assuming that you're fighting them as soon as possible. No health upgrades, no body armor, no sub-tanks, no nothing. So, like, when I'm saying hard, what I really mean is they could be hard if you go after them first. Know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that.
And now, if you are doing a no achievements run and you've gotten all the body armor and everything, you would actually want to visit this stage first before going to the Sigma stages. Because first of all, that weird looking bat right there will give you lives every time it drops something, so you can max out your life counter to 9, which you need at least 5 extra ones for the upgrade we're getting later. Not this one, this is just a sub-tank. And by the way, the reason we skipped that in part 4 was because we didn't have charged Chameleon, but we will in part 5. Now, what you want to do is you want to fire 2 shots there at that elevation to clear out the bats, or just use charged Chameleon Sting, whatever floats your boat. And then, right as this cart launches into the air, you want to jump off and look at that energy capsule. And you want to do that 5 times. And on the 5th time, if you have full energy, all the armor parts, and all the sub-tanks and heart tanks and everything, you'll get a special move called the Hadoken, which will one-shot all bosses, along with some humorous Dr. Light text. Well, okay, I showed that in part 5.
I like what he's wearing.
Yeah. And the Hadoken is just like it is in the Street Fighter games, just down and forward. And the inputs are very lenient, too. Like, you can even do down and forward in the air, and it will still work as long as you fire when you're on the ground. Anyways, now let's talk about if you're still aiming for achievements. In that case, the password is the same, except you want a circle of 2s and then a 68 in the middle. Do that, and you will have 5 heart tanks, the dash boots instead of the arm upgrade, and I think you'll have 1 sub-tank as well. And half the bosses will be beaten once again, including Boomerang Kuwanger, who was by far the biggest obstacle in an all-achievements run. Screw the Iceless Heart, screw Kuwanger himself, he is just gone. Out of the way. Don't even worry about him.
Right, that's convenient.
Indeed. even more convenient is that we can tackle Chameleon first now, since, yeah, we already got the boomerang cutter. And I'm gonna show this again, just for the guys that skipped ahead to the achievements run. I just want to cover my bases.
Let's consider it.
Yeah. Though, I added Outsting Chameleon later on. Maybe I should look into adding that part back in. Who knows?
Maybe.
Whatever. Oh, by the way, after you get that body armor, let's talk about the last stage effect. This stage, if you haven't beaten Octopus first, this water will not be there. And that heart tank won't be impossible, but you need like a penguin sled and a well-timed dash jump. Definitely beat Octopus first, just to make things easy. Make sure to destroy a Ride armor for the achievement. And this part here, since we don't have literal invincibility, let's talk about the weapon you want to use, the homing missile. This game kind of has Ninja Gaiden syndrome, in which the bottomless abysses are by far the most dangerous part of the game, so whatever you can do to mitigate that, be sure to do.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get much more dangerous than a one-hit kill that's very difficult to avoid.
Yeah. And that's probably one of the bigger blunders in the walkthrough, the fact that I just sort of damage boosted through all of the cannons while leapfrogging every other platform.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. Also, he's weak to Sting Chameleon's weapon.
Yeah, I noticed. It does a lot of damage.
Indeed. Guy was already like the easiest Maverick, so poor Eagle. By the way, I never shared Eagle's backstory with you, did I?
No, I don't think so.
Well, it's pretty cool. See, all of the other Mavericks, like, Sigma was the guy they actually served, not the humans, and Sigma just happened to be created to protect the humans from the Mavericks. So when Sigma himself went rogue, by the way, make sure to tag him with 3 boomerang cutters for the achievement, all the Mavericks kinda went with Sigma, either because they were opportunists, either because they were blindly loyal to Sigma rather than the humans, and various other reasons. Storm Eagle was the only guy that actually tried to do the right thing, so when Sigma rebelled, he tried to beat him in a one-on-one fight. Unfortunately, as you can see, Storm Eagle isn't that strong, so he didn't do any better against Sigma than he did against us, so Sigma kind of beat him into submission, and he served Sigma ever since then. Still, bonus points for trying.
That's true, at least you tried, and that's an interesting backstory.
Yeah. Also, these guys are not weak to the rolling shields, Skyzo. It's just that strong.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So basically it's the go-to weapon for anything that has invincibility frames and doesn't specifically resist it like some of the other mini-bosses do.
Yeah, basically, it's like, it's always been overpowered, I feel.
And then for bosses that don't have invincibility frames, you just Storm Tornado them. It's supposed to be weak to the boomerang cutter, but, well, really doesn't matter now, does it?
Yeah.
Alright, so after getting that sub-tank, let's talk about the dark alleyways. Now, again, bottomless pits, no chameleon sting, so you want either the fire wave in front of you or the storm tornado to KO those guys before they come on screen, and do not dash either. You'll make yourself way more liable to death just dashing through, unless you've memorized everything like I did, but still.
Right, that's sensible.
And once again, homing missile just sort of kicks the stuffing out of this guy, so make sure to use that on him. It has some invincibility frames, so Storm Tornado isn't the best weapon, unless you have the charged version, at which point it does 4 hit points of damage every frame instead of just 1. Pretty awesome there.
Yeah, that's pretty insane.
And now let's check out Spark Mandrill once again. Now, if you really want to, you could not shoot him while he's still frozen, just shoot him after he breaks out, and that'll stun lock him completely, but, I mean, come on. You don't need to do that.
I guess if you're struggling against him, but even then.
Yeah. And that's all for this episode. Hopefully Ness Eggman can show this to his friends, and hopefully this will help anyone else struggling along before we tackle the final stages in Part 5. What did you think of that, Skyzo?
Well, I think it was a sensible thing to do, to just kind of cover this like this.
Yeah, thank you. Anyways, this is Fiona Day Quester signing out, with the best music in the game playing, no less. See you next episode, and God bless.
I'll catch you all later.
Bye!